And speaking of advantages, I want to dive in a little bit more about your, we've spoken about all these different roles you've had, and really you've covered so much ground in terms of you've done, marketing, consulting, sales, tech, like all these areas. How do you think that's benefited you in getting to where you are now and having that range of experiences? Do you think that's something that's been really valuable in your experience?
Oh, it's been mission critical. I thank my younger self for being so like ADHD and just like, oh, I'm just gonna try everything. Like it seemed a bit like wacky and uncoordinated at the time. I think yeah, I think pretty early on I had a thesis where it's like, okay, I have no idea what the fuck I want to do. So why don't I just try a lot of different, and I think that helps in two ways. Number one, you uncover things that you do and don't like. Like I tried, sales, marketing, design, operations, project management, front end web dev. And so you pick up on lots of different skills. You test out different things. You get to see the world in different ways. Ultimately, you'll come to skills you like more. So for me, I think like what I loved most was kind of like product, marketing, sales, content, things that like very much had that human element to them. I think that's what I was always drawn to, less so kind of like purely the tech side or the numbers side. But the other really powerful thing, I think, like if you want to start your own thing someday, if you're a CEO, CEOs say, and I don't think you should like worship the CEO title, but like if you're starting something, right, like creating something from scratch, going from 0 to 1, I think having that generalist skill set is an advantage. And in particular, a holistic problem solving mindset, being able to see a problem from different angles. It's just like when I come to a problem right now with early work or even Atlassian, I'm not just thinking about it from like, oh, here's the technical perspective. I'm considering the design because I've worked in design. I'm considering the customer side of marketing because I've worked in marketing. Even the sales pitch, I've worked in sales. So when you're young and you're still just early in your career and you're like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, like get a lot of different data points. And the more data you have, the more lenses you have, like all the angles you have of like the same problem. You can just see it from different ways. That actually, I think, allows you to come to, on average, more robust and more successful decision making when it comes to solving problems.
Yeah, I think it's so important too. And something I've spoken about on the podcast before is there's a book called Range, and it's by David Epstein. And he's
Mm.
kind of has this theory that range is like the way to go in terms of, traditional success or having a finding the right career and things like that. And that's in contrast to the classic like 10,000 hours rule where it's like, you if you want to be good at something, you've got to just do only that for like 10 years or whatever. And then like you've said, there's this other way of doing it where it's like I'm going to have all these experiences in different areas, and then one like somehow I'm going to do something and all these things are just kind of going to interconnect, and I'm going to have such an advantage over everyone because I've had all these diverse things that just line up, and it just gives me, like you've said, much better perspective, and you're able to just look at things in a new way, and it's so powerful.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, like the specialist versus generalist thing, because I think there's the balance here, and people talk about like the T-shaped model of being decent across a lot of things and great at like one or two things, and I think that's broadly the model that I'd subscribe to. I've always loved
Mm.
Scott Dilbert. What's his name? Scott Adams. Sorry, are you familiar with Scott Adams, the guy who wrote like the Dilbert comic? I might be getting his
Oh,
name
Scott
wrong.
Adams, yeah.
Yeah, cool. I mean, he is one of the best examples of the talent stack. He's one of the best examples. Scott Adams was, he was a funny guy. He could tell jokes, but he wasn't the world's best comedian. He was a decent artist. He could draw, but he wasn't the world's best, artist. And he worked in kind of like, corporate culture and offices and all that, but like wasn't like the best corporate worker. But the intersection of those three things allowed him to create a really unique intersection. It allowed him to create like a humorous comic about office culture. And so just by being better than average at several things, he found the intersection of those things and then was able to get a really big win on the board. And so when it comes to being a generalist, like, okay, the range thesis, and I haven't read range, so forgive me if I've misinterpreted the thesis. I think like yes, like it's great. Like start off early, explore a lot of things, but you'll find some things that you more naturally gravitate towards, or some things that you really enjoy, some things that really energize you. I think the magic comes from finding like the 2 to 3 things you're best at, maybe 3 to 4, and thinking about, okay, what's the intersection of those? And when I say best at, it could be a skill or it could be a knowledge about a certain area. So maybe you've spent a lot of time in the sustainability space, like you've been working on sustainability, and maybe you also love making TikToks, right? As in, like, you're a very avid user of social media. You're good at like short form content creation, good at doing funny stuff. You might then create like a sustainability TikTok channel. So it's about like I always think about intersections. Every person has such a beautiful, rich, and complex story in their life, and we will all encounter different things, and we'll all be great at certain things. And so it's like, how do you just tap into, what your strengths are and combine them into, I think, what's a unique offering that no one else can do, because no one else is you. Like James, you're the best at being you, James, specifically. There are other good
Mm.
Jameses. I don't want to insult them. I have several friends named James, but I think it's such a fascinating piece there, right? I think, and people go like, okay, so like, yeah, like I'm not sure.
Mm.
Sometimes people go like, oh, I'm not sure like what my strengths are. I don't know what I'm good at or what I'm bad at. There are a couple ways you can do this, right? You can go, okay, like what subjects do you enjoy most in school? What subjects do you do best at in school? But also, what were the things when you were a little kid that you were just drawn to? Like things that you found fun or exciting or interesting? Like that childlike self. What did you just naturally gravitate towards? Trying to kind of reflect on that is really interesting. Like I actually remember, I'm not shitting here. I'm not joking. My friend and I in year three, we both wanted to be marketers. We were like, oh yeah, marketing, advertising. That's like so
Mm.
cool. Like we saw ads on TV, they're hilarious. Like it's so creative
Wow.
and like doing really funny stuff. And I was like, yeah, I want to do marketing. So
Yeah.
bizarre. And then I ended up doing uni. I didn't even start in marketing. I started off doing like finance and like biology. And I ended up in marketing anyway. It's like I almost came back around to the child self. It's like I bet up and saw myself. I'm like, oh wait, I actually just love this idea of like, how do you like capture the
Mm.
story of why something is like a valuable solution for someone? Like that paradigm is really fascinating. But I mean, another way to do this is like you could ask your family and friends, like if you were to ask your five closest friends, hey, like what do you think like I'm much better at than most people, or like what do you, when you think about like kind of like my skills or my strengths, like what do you associate with that world? You can also ask them for weaknesses too. Definitely do that. That's a good one. Always good to get candid feedback. But ask your family and friends, like like,
Mm.
and what you'll be surprised. You will see patterns. People will know, oh, James is just like really good at hosting podcasts. I don't know what it is. I think that, but yeah, like there will be several skills here that will just kind of come up as patterns that like even if you don't yet have that self-awareness, the world around you will have at least a perceived awareness of your strengths and skills. And so yeah, I think for every young person,
Mm.
when you're trying to work out what the hell to do, it's really powerful to be able to just try and find those early intuitive strengths and inclinations and then start to think about how to combine them. Massive rant, but yeah, I hope that vibe was vaguely what you're looking for.
No. No, definitely. I think you're spot on there in working out your strengths, and that Scott Adams stacking is a fantastic example, and it just shows that you don't have to be the best. Like someone's always going to be better than you at most things, so it's just combining those things together and then working out where you can really thrive is really really cool. And you gave great examples there of like finding your strengths and weaknesses. I think is so important to, because sometimes it can be hard to know that about yourself when you're just going around about your day, and it's so useful to get other people's thoughts on you, because sometimes it's so hard to tell, like, oh, what am I like, am I funny, like am I what am I good at, kind of thing. It's sometimes hard to know that, so maybe I'm funny. It's really cool to be able to get other people's opinions. Definitely, I think that's really really useful.
Yeah, I mean that's with the caveat of like other people will give you their opinions, but that's not necessarily a reflection of like your energy internally. Like some things might just energize you, and you might just love them, and maybe people haven't seen examples of them. Like you, for instance, okay, you could be someone who's like like done very well at math
Mm.
in school, but maybe you didn't actually enjoy it. Maybe you just like worked really hard at it. People are like, oh yeah, James, he's like the math guy. But maybe that's not. Maybe you actually just love drawing and painting, and like maybe you're not as good there yet, but you just have the passion and energy. And to be honest, like I back like the passion and the energy like as like a long term bet more so than just like, oh yeah, like like I just happen to get like good grades in this thing. Yeah, I mean I think usually they tend to coincide. Like usually like the things that you're really passionate about, you just end up tending to do well at because you're just thinking about them a lot. It's just the way your brain operates. But it's not always a one for one mapping. Yeah.
Yeah,